Hey, it's your boy Easy, and on today's episode of Easy Opens, we're going to be taking a look at the NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Archie Adventure Comics Leatherhead figure. Good old Jess Harley. This version of Leatherhead first appeared in Archie TMNT Adventures issue 6 from November of 1989. He was created by Ryan Brown. His real name is Jess Harley, and in this continuity is a human who was transformed into Leatherhead by Mary Bones using the Turnstone. He's also a member of the Mighty Mutanimals. So as per usual, the box art is fantastic. NECA does a great job here, and this looks great. But we're not here to talk about that. Let's go ahead and get this figure free from its plastic prison and see what we think about Leatherhead. So fresh out the box, this figure looks and feels fantastic. He's got the heft to him, so he feels like a substantial figure. And he's got just like the size, like he's kind of imposing, like he's kind of just wide and just there's a lot here. And then the look is just great. Like you can see the excitement in his face, and it's kind of almost infectious, which is kind of a weird thing to say about an action figure. But then again, I guess they're like supposed to kind of connect with us on some level based on the artwork. And so I don't know, maybe I'm getting into the weeds here, but like there's something about his look that just is exciting and fun, and I really dig it. The sculpt on this figure is amazing. The amount of detail in all of the little scales, all the little bumps and everything, and all of his like skin texture is just insane and extremely well done. And it contrasts so well with the flatness of his shorts and his shoes that just further accentuates the detail and makes this figure pop. On top of the fact that, you know, the paint just looks awesome. And then just continues with the Archie Adventures lines mix of textured skin with like smooth clothing kind of paint schemes and everything like that. That juxtaposition just brings these characters to life in a way that you wouldn't necessarily think about until like you see it, and then you're like, oh no, that's fantastic. He just has this thing that like you kind of want from an action figure, which inherently is a toy, that makes you want to pick it up and play with it. And he's definitely got that aesthetic and vibe about him. The eyeliner is kind of interesting. I'm curious if, I can't recall off the top of my head as I'm recording this, if just your normal Jess Harley Leatherhead that you generally think of had the eyeliner and the yellow eyebrows. If he did, I'll probably show a picture here and prove myself whether one way or the other. I probably could just look it up real quick. I might as well just do that now. Okay, so on the cover of TMNT Adventures number 6, he doesn't seem to have the yellow eyebrows. They're not there. But when you get to the panel where Mary Bones or Cherube turns him into Leatherhead, he does have the blonde eyebrows. They're at least there canonically in some form or fashion. So like, you know, that's awesome. And I think that they just draw your eyes to his face in a way that's really neat. And I wonder if like, I don't know, that'd be really funny if like that was actually based in some truth that like I've lived in Florida my whole life, and I'm going to go like look at an alligator the next time that, you know, you just walk out your door. I'm going to notice that, oh dang, they actually do have blonde eyebrows. Like that would be wild to me. But like, I don't know, it might be one of those Mandela effects that like up until this point, I just didn't think that they needed them, but who knows? So Leatherhead comes with 6 interchangeable hands, and that's it. All right, let's take a look at the articulation you're going to get out of Leatherhead. So starting at the head, you can completely rip his head off, and there you go. That's the ball joint that's in there. And yeah, mine comes off pretty easily, but you know, it's fine. It stays on fairly well as well. But if you try to move it around too much, just a little bit of turn, it pops it right out. So you could technically get a good range of motion there, I guess, but like mine, it just pops it out because just the way the shape of his head is. So yeah, he can look up a little bit, but also just based on his stature and the way that, well, just the way that he stands, he kind of just defaultly looks up a little bit. But he could look down a decent amount while barely maintaining the ball, barely maintaining the grip on the ball joint at the neck. So you've got some movement in the head, but it's all at the risk of it popping off. But, you know, if you can get it to stay in there, it'll still stay in there. So it's not that big a deal. But one of my favorite things is he's got a hinged jaw, which is fantastic. And I absolutely love that, especially on characters like this. And yeah, just absolutely love that. Moving on down to the arms, 360 at the shoulders, as well as a hinge for some up and down movement. You get 360 at the bicep, but mine's a little tight. You also have a hinge and a swivel at the elbow, which is really neat and is always fun to see because you don't see that too often. Yeah, there you go. And then the wrist, you have 360 at the wrist as well as a hinge for some more movement there. Moving on to the chest. You probably could get 360 there, but mine feels really tight, so I'm not going to do it. But it's on a ball joint, so tons of wiggling and just movement there. And then I'm not sure if yep, there it goes. It popped, which was terrifying, as most of you know. But yeah, no, he's got 360 at the waist, which is really cool. But now it feels a little loose. I think it'll be fine, but just keep that in mind if you're trying to do this with yours. But tons of movement there. Moving on to the legs, he's got the shorts kind of inhibit his split range, but you know it's okay. How often is he doing splits anyway? He's got some thigh swivel. He has a I'm trying to see if that leg no, it doesn't look like that moves. But he does have a hinge in the knee as well as the swivel, just like the elbows. And then he has, let's see if this is, nope, that doesn't look to be at the calf. That looks to be all one piece. But he does have an ankle rocker that has a hinge as well. And then turn into his backside, he has a tail that is posable because you can see the air holes right there. So you can bend this a little bit, but it is pretty tight. So I don't know how much you're going to get out of it, but it is doable. It's also plugged in to his backside, so you got 360 there as well as a hinge for some up and down movement if need be, but bear in mind that the paint does rub off like almost immediately, so not the biggest deal considering it's, you know, back there and how often are you looking at Leatherhead's tail, but nevertheless, just thought I'd mention that. And I do believe that is all the articulation you're going to get out of good old Jess Harley. According to Turtlepedia, this version of Leatherhead stands at 5 foot 10 inches and weighs around 165 pounds. This figure stands just about 6 inches tall and weighs a little over 10 ounces. So now let's see how he measures up to some other figures you might have in your collection. Here they are with Super 7's TMNT Ultimates, Donatello, and Jazzwares, Agent Peely. Here they are with Hasbro's G.I. Joe Classifieds, Crocmaster, and SH Figuarts, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Leonardo. Here they are with NECA's Alf and NECA's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Return to New York, Donatello. Here they are with Mattel's Masterverse, Scareglow, and SH Figuarts Kamen Rider Rogue. Here they are with Jada Toys, Kin Masters, and Figma's Sword Art Online, Shinon. Here they are with Jada Toys, Mega Man, and Jazzwares, Tyranitar. Here they are with the NECA Arcade Leatherhead and the NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987 animated series Leatherhead. Here they are with the NECA Archie comics Man Ray and Jaguar. And here they are with the DC Collectibles Killer Croc and the McFarlane Multiverse Killer Croc. The Archie Adventures Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics are fantastic. If you haven't read them, get past the first 5 issues, I think, which are just retellings of the animated series, and then it just starts to pick up and world build and create its own universe, and it is delightful. In the Turtles universe, just in general, one of my favorite characters is Leatherhead, be it the Jess Harley Archie Adventures version or, you know, really any version of this character. There's just something about him that just always looked cool, and I don't know, maybe it could be because I'm from Florida and we've got gators everywhere and it's just something familiar to me, but putting a little hat and giving it a knife, I don't know, something about that just works for me. It just checks a box and probably says more about me than I'd like to admit. Regardless, my fandom is secure in that I think Leatherhead is one of the best characters in all of Ninja Turtles. The Archie Adventures version of Leatherhead is very interesting and different, and one thing I was not expecting, when they introduced the Stump Intergalactic Wrestling version of Leatherhead, I was like, oh, well, that's interesting, and just did not see that coming. And I'm all about it. I'm all about these characters trying out new things and experimenting and stuff, because sure, that's the spice of life. That's what makes life great. And when you're an anthropomorphic, cursed alligator man, I mean, what else are you going to do with your time? You know, your options are a little limited, but if you can make some money wrestling and entertaining, why not? Who am I to judge? Thankfully, Neca decided to immortalize this character in plastic form and have done a fantastic job of that. He looks awesome. Like, just the detail is fantastic in the skin, and just the paint looks great. He's got the aesthetics paint-wise and sculpt-wise that go extremely well with the rest of the Archie Adventures line, and he just looks so cool on his own, even though he's just wearing shorts and shoes and have some wristbands and yellow eyebrows. That's really it. Otherwise, he's just a gator. But those accents kind of just make him a little fun. You're like, oh, okay. You know, especially if you have no idea about this character or why he's dressed like this. It's very interesting. And they did a great job replicating what you see on the page here in plastic form. He feels great. He looks great. And he's fun to move around and play with. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard to mess up a gator, I think. And the only complaints I really have about this character is that his head articulation. If you, at least on mine, which I think is pretty much everyone's, if I'm not mistaken, if you just barely get his head to go up just ever so slightly, it pops out of the ball joint. Now, it'll stay in if you keep it looking straight ahead, like there's not an issue. But if you just kind of get it going up just a little bit, it just pops right out of the joint. And that's kind of annoying. I don't necessarily need him to look up that much more than what he already does. So it's not that big of a detriment to the posability and playability of the figure. However, it does lead to some frustration, especially if the head pops off and you got to find it and you can't find it, and then you just have a headless Leatherhead, which is kind of weird because he'd just be leather then, right? Because he wouldn't have a head. I don't know. And then on top of that, considering that this is the same character that is usually decked out in a vest, in jeans, and has like a hat and knives and weapons and just weird accessories, having a version of that character that doesn't have those things, I think only adds to the absence of those things. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, it's just in contrast, which we would naturally compare other versions of this character, given it's the same character, that we would notice his lack of accessories even more. And so I think that plays to a detriment to this figure. However, that's not necessarily the figure or really Neca's fault. That's just how it is. That's just what this character is. But having said all that, again, he looks fantastic with the Archie figures and goes really well with Crying Hound, and I'm excited about that they're giving us more of the Stump Intergalactic Wrestling figures. Like, I'm all about that, because that was just super fun and super weird. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of Jess Harley and Leatherhead, so the more the better. And yeah, so I mean, having said all that, I'm really happy with this figure. So yeah, if you're a fan of the Archie line and Turtles in general, you're going to love this figure. If you love Leatherhead, you're probably going to like this figure. If you've got a shelf dedicated to alligator figures, he'll go great there. And if you have a thing for shirtless alligator men, then you are absolutely going to love this Leatherhead figure. All right, well, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments, what's your favorite version of Leatherhead and why? because I just want to know. I like talking about Leatherhead. And if you want to hear me talk more about Leatherhead, you can do so by checking out my podcast, Turtle Soup. Here on YouTube, my friend and I, we talk about the Ninja Turtles. Be sure to check us out, Turtle Soup Show Podcast. And until then, else time.